Hi folks, right, this is part 2 of this chat. Again, I'm splitting it up to make it a bit easier, especially because I probably missed stuff out. But I'm going to talk about why, in my opinion, this is just my theory, why suddenly this trans issue's developed in the last, 5 to 10 years. Now, if we go back to the 70s, or before the 70s, Labour seemed, I wasn't born, but Labour seemed to be a party where if you was working class you'd vote for Labour regardless. Around the 70s this seemed to have changed. In fact, if you ever listen to the radio show Steptoe and Son, I think they did an episode where it was recorded, I think in the late 60s, where they made a joke about Labour being a middle class party. So I think it's started quite a while ago. But what happened was in the 70s, late 70s, when Mrs Thatcher came into power, they did an incredibly clever, smart manoeuvre, and that was to allow the working class, well, not the working class, anyone, to buy their council house. Now the reason this is incredibly clever is because it suddenly makes people middle class and home ownership. So that actually makes people more conservative. They're less likely to be Labour supporters and vote for Conservatives, because that's what tends to happen. And so you notice this huge change where a lot of working class people switch from being Labour supporters to Conservatives. And that's never really gone back, even today. When we talk about that, even today, even if they do vote Labour, they're not like, they don't vote for it on principles of I'm working class, I vote Labour. You hardly hear that now. It used to be very fashionable to hear that. But it tends to be, not so much. Hang on. Oh God, no, more people. And so, hang on, this is going to be a big gap here. God, it's so busy today. Hang on. This is ruining I'll probably lose track of where we're up to. This is the trouble when you're doing it, but I find doing it outdoors is I can think easier. If I did it indoors, I feel wooden when I do it for some reason. Hang on. Let's just walk past. Hang on. Oops. Shush, Miller. Sorry. Ignore her. They're both friendly. Oh, Archie, you'll pull me over, idiot boy. No, you have to be an idiot. Don't worry, he's friendly. He's just giddy, just wants to play. No, shush. Archie, you'll pull me over. Look, it's all slip. Sorry about that. Archie, you're very naughty. Come on, silly boy. Oh, and that was naughty. Anyway. So let's get back. And again, this is my opinion. It's probably rubbish what I'm talking, but what happened was, by the way, in sociology, this is how I was introduced to it anyway, in sociology, is you're middle class if you own your home, if you've gone to university, you go abroad on holiday, you're a car owner and all this. There's several factors, and all these, it's, there's more chance you're going to vote Conservative than Labour. Now, and again, you can disagree with me, it's up to you, I'm not bothered. But what happens is, we have this huge change where, as I say, society moves away from Labour, working class, so they no longer become a working class party. And so this is why we have this now, they've moved towards being a middle class party. They're no longer, they're not even hiding the fact that they're working. They come out with this, they try and fudge it by saying it's nonsense PR word, working people. It's not working class people. It's just nonsense thing. But anyway. So, that's an interesting. So I'm just looking at this. Interest. I think there's a big hole in the rock, which I'm just talking to myself there. Anyway, so So the way you do things then is you use people and play games to get votes. And the most obvious one was the Labour and the left then target such as the gay community and say, you're a victim. And they do it for other communities. They go up to the black community and say, you're a victim. They did it with the gay community. Oh, you're a victim. You must vote for us. And so for quite a few years, they targeted, I'd argue, the gay community for votes. And then along came, we had an era where countries started legalising gay marriage. Now you might wonder why Labour didn't go straight towards, you'd think there would be, wouldn't you? You'd think England would be the first country to legalise gay marriage when it was Labour in power. And yet they didn't. They were neither the first, and they never actually introduced gay marriage. They created this bizarre, non-explicit, rubbish, naff, pretends, living together, slightly legal, rubbish thing. Why? Because to legalise marriage would have meant you've given the gay community equal rights, and then they go out and buy houses and they become conservatives. There's no reason for them to be Labour voters at that point, because they're no longer victims. They've got the full rights, which is why I'd argue Conservatives were smart. When they came into power, they fully legalised gay marriage, ka-ching. And what happens? You see the gay community no longer see themselves as victims, and they are now, going out buying houses, getting married, no problems. And obviously, yes, there might be the odd slight law where there's still hiccups here and there, although I haven't heard anything. I was surprised. But in theory, the gay community and lesbian community have got pretty much, they're on par now. And I haven't really ever heard anyone from the gay community argue that they don't have any rights compared to everyone else. There's none of that victimhood anymore. There might be for a few, but I've not heard it. That seems to have long gone. And so you're now left and stuffed that you no longer have as many victims to get votes from. So suddenly, ka-ching, 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 you suddenly invent ones by saying this trans community. And not only does it include transgender, as I pointed out, Stonewall, I believe it's Stonewall on the website, have it as an umbrella thing. It includes non-binary, so people who claim to be that, they don't see themselves as male or female. I think it includes people who see themselves as they, them, and all this nonsense. Men who dress up in women's clothes as a fetish, all sorts. It actually is a vast, if you look at the Stonewall umbrella term, it actually surprises. People think I'm having them on, even the trans community, when I point this out. Because again, when people talk about trans, there's two. There's trans as in short for transgender, but there's also trans as in the umbrella term. So everything gets a bit confusing. So whenever I say, when anyone brings up trans, it's always important to ask them which version. Are they talking about trans as in short for transgender or short for the umbrella terms? Because people, when people say it, when I get people to ask, they're surprised that they're talking to people who actually use a different version to what they think they're talking about. So obviously now you've got a new group who you can claim to be victims, and this is why. I mean, you'll see this. You see the Labour trying to victimise everyone everywhere. I was at. I always giggle when I go to. If you go to the Leeds Carnival, you'll see Labour on purpose is there. Ooh, come to us, you're the victim. Sod you. I mean, they don't care about, or in my opinion, they don't really care about these people. It's just, as long as they're victims, it's helpful, it gets them votes. Make sure everyone's a victim, and you've got votes. And this is all, by the way, why you can see why Labour doesn't like people buying houses, because when people rent, I think America has even higher rental than the UK. I think England has more people buying houses, per person, or whatever you call it, than in America. So that's why in America, places like New York, I think have a huge I think a lot of people there rent, or traditionally do. And when people rent and use public transport, as I'd imagine they do in New York more than anywhere, they're more likely to be left wing because, they don't own houses or property, and they're more focused on public transport. Well, if you go to areas where people own houses and they've got cars because they need to get about, and businesses, they tend to be more conservative. It's a game of, you see this is a game, and once you understand the game, you can see how the rules are played out. So we have this situation now where, in my opinion anyway, where the trans community is used, and I do mean used, by the left for votes, and they tell them they're victims and blah blah blah. And again, my view is they should just, let's be honest, there are men out there who are claiming to be female so they can go spy on women in toilets, and that's the unfortunate situation. Because of that, let's just accept that they shouldn't be in female toilets, in female sports, and we can move on. Yes, it's not perfect. I'm not saying it is for the trans community, but I think they're fighting a failing battle, and it's actually backfiring. I mean, we've seen in America, Donald Trump's just written off everything, and people have voted for that. Even people on the left apparently are sort of gone, yeah, it's gone too far. So, it's easier for everyone, but the trouble is, we live in a world, as I say, where everyone's more, they don't care about, no one cares about anyone else's feelings. No one puts anyone else first. It's all about my feelings, me. You might have seen dreadful show. This BBC did this, I think it's a children's show aimed at the youth, where this trans person is more concerned about her dying grandmother recognising her as a female than the fact she's dying. I mean, that's how sick everything is. The fact that you're more important, sod your dying grandmother, sod anyone else. And that was actually the most extreme version, but that becomes acceptable. And all the students and teachers going, oh yes, you're the important one, sod your grandmother. Who cares if she's dying and she's looked after you all her life or whatever and loves you? Sod her, she's an evil cow, silly old bag, she's dying and she hasn't recognised you because she's got dementia and whatever as a woman, or if she's forgotten. Well, how ridiculous. That demonstrates the modern belief from these people. Anyway, sod everyone else, but as long as you're important. That's the message you get. Selfishness. And yet, at the same time, you're told that makes you a kind, nice person. Be as selfish as you can be. Sod everyone else. That makes you a good person. Well, that's not the way I see good people. But as I say, this is, in my opinion, how we've got to this trans thing, because they've lost, or at least, this is why they don't. You'll see now, even all these, they're focusing. Even the gay and lesbian things seem to have now switched to trans, because the gay community have got equal rights. And on top of that, we see a lot of hijacking. But as I said before, the Pride seems to have been fully hijacked. And if you haven't worked that one out, why? It's because it's a way of putting socialism into schools. That's what's been done. It's not really Pride anymore. The original Pride, I watched it, was fantastic. It's quite emotional to see. It was in America. There was parents walking down the street in a protest, saying, I'm proud of my son. It'll be his daughters as well, but it's usually the ones who usually get the problems are the gay men, rather than lesbians. Lesbians have not had the social problems, hatred that gay men have. That's just a fact. In England anyway. I think in other countries it has been different, but in England you could be lesbian. I mean, I've said it before, my stepmother, apparently it looks like she was a lesbian, and she played football in a very working men's club, and the other women were fair. I mean, everyone knew they were lesbians. I mean, they even dressed. I mean, I've got pictures. They're all in, what do you call it, dungarees and stuff. And when my mum died, half the what do you call it was the church. Half the church was very much women. Now, obviously, she might not have been lesbian, but everyone's told me she was. But she never ever had this problem of abuse or anything. None of the men gave her that sass. And I suspect at the time, to be honest, I don't think if you were gay you got that much abuse. I mean, let's be honest, in the 70s, a lot of comedians who were gay had their own TV shows. There were probably more gay men on TV who had their own shows, openly gay men. Who had their own shows than today. I mean, it's, we talk about today being better, but you'd see less gay men, and let's be honest, most of the pop groups were gay, openly gay, and everyone were buying the music. So this sort of pretense that everyone were anti, we've all suddenly changed. I don't think we have. I think people are quite always accepting the gay community, but anyway. I digress there. In fact, I've forgotten what I'm on about now. I was on about hijacking Pride. Now, to me, the left have hijacked Pride and the Pride flag. So, they've included everything, haven't they? And this becomes controversial because it suggests that if you're straight, you're a horrible person, and everyone who's gay, lesbian, bi, and everything 100% agrees with each other, which is the most ridiculous prejudice thing I've ever come across. I mean, the notion of Pride now is highly offensive because you'll notice not everybody who is gay, lesbian, and bi agree with each other and everything. Some are Conservatives, some are Labour, some are Lib Dems, and you can see it now. You've got some very right-wing people who are gay. Some people who are gay are very left-wing. This notion that everybody who's gay is in this, gay, bi, whatever, has the same ideology is nonsense. And again, when we see the straight community, they're not actually hostile towards the gay community. So this sort of, they're there, aren't they, the bad people, is so ridiculous. But again, division. One of the things I keep pointing out with the left is they get votes on hate. They tell people to hate. I saw a socialist today. He's posted a post saying, murder all billionaires. Silence people who are right-wing. In his view, who considers right-wing, they should be all closed down. Hate, and he posts a lot about who he hates. And you find this, a lot of socialist Labour people do tell you who to hate. They'll say, these are your enemy. At the moment, it's currently the rich, I think. But, it's often usually the male or the white person. There's usually somebody socialists will tell you to hate. And they'll justify it. They don't see it as being wrong. Over and over, they stand there and say, I can hate this person. I'm in the right. And so, as I say, Pride is now being hijacked, and it's a useful tool to divide people. One thing to note as well is we can see how attitudes change and how people, what seems a good idea at the time changes. Just a side note, when I was at school, I think in the 90s, might have been this, I think it was the 90s, the early 90s, I remember several left-wing female teachers telling the female students how it was, how do I word this, how it was progressive for them if they felt like having sex with older men, and how they considered if they had sex with 50-year-old men perfectly acceptable even when they were 14, because in their words, lads have been doing it for years, and why shouldn't women? Well, you can obviously see the danger there, giving that message out. I mean, I don't think anyone needs to explain how that view's probably, dated very badly. But this is the trouble. I think one of the things that we'll see is this trans thing will. I'm going to talk about it, reasons why I think in future we'll look back and it won't be seen as progressive as people think it is. So hopefully this has made, I don't know if what I've just said in this section makes sense. But as I say, in my opinion, the reason why we've got this trans issue at the moment is simply because it's the way for the left to gain votes by creating a complete class of new victims. And the trouble is, you see, it's an ideal one because you tell them, I think it's one where they know that they could be victims for years, because whatever happens, it's unlikely that, the way the wind is blowing, it's unlikely that it looks like people are not happy about the trans community sharing the same toilets as women. And again, a lot of that is down to men who've claimed to be female, who've lied just to do it, and the anger should be aimed towards them. But unfortunately, unless you can work out a way around it, which I don't think you can, the only conclusion is it would make sense, and it is. You have to be really suspicious over the Labour MPs who are doing this, because it's, in my view, an obvious way of they wanting a new victim, and they couldn't care less. I mean, one of the most obvious things is when they ask define what a woman is, and none of them can, because they don't believe in it, and you can see them being asked simple questions. And when people ask simple questions such as define what a woman is, and they can't, fully, these aren't people actually believing what they're talking about. Because if they did, they'd be able to define a woman instantly. You might disagree with their interpretation, but the fact that they just go, I'm walking off, it's not important, blah, 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 shows they actually refuse to, they don't believe in it. Somebody who believes in this, I'm 100% sure, could just define a woman straight away, rightly or wrongly. It doesn't matter if you agree with their definition. But they'd come out with their own beliefs. And again, doesn't mean that they're right or wrong. But at least it would show they actually believe in what they're talking about. The fact that when anyone gets asked, define what a woman is, and they can't, 100% shows they're fake. These are fake people. And you must realise that these are using people. So anyway, I thought that I'll just end that section there. I'll do another one. Hopefully, I'm not taking sides on this and blah, 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 unless you might think I don't know. But hey ho.